Hey guys, it's Nicole. I'm back with another video, and I have been making all different kinds of videos about the books that I've been reading, and I was kind of making in order of these are the books I really liked, and then these are the books I really didn't like, and now I've just been kind of doing whatever. There hasn't really been an organization to this. So the last book that I talked about was a play, and I do intend to actually talk more about that. I think I got some good reactions to that video, and I definitely intend to make more videos about that. But I wanted to make this video, and today's video is going to be about a book, because I feel like all of the book reviews or thoughts that I've done have been murder mysteries or fiction or drama, and I kind of want to go back to where it all started for me, the first genre of books that I really fell in love with, which was fantasy. And this wasn't the first fantasy book I ever read, that's for sure, but it is one of the best fantasy books that I've ever read. I actually may make a video of the very first fantasy book that I ever read, or that got me into reading and fantasy that much, but that'll be a different video. Today's video is going to be about a fantasy book that I read, I think it was 2022, so it's been 3 years now since I read the book, and I don't remember why I picked it up. I just remember reading the back of the book and really loving the description, and I really used to love fantasy so much. I still do read a lot of fantasy, but it's definitely a lot less. I've never read the I think it's the Crown of Thorns and Roses series. I think that's what it's called. I've never read that. I've heard it's really good. I've heard it's full of smut, and I definitely plan on reading it one day. It's just not in my immediate to be read pile. So yeah, I haven't really read fantasy in a while. It's just because I just kind of got out of it. I've really been into fiction and drama and murder mysteries. That's just what I've been into lately. But I do want to talk about this fantasy book in particular that I have out today, because there was something that I just really loved about it when I first started reading it. And I just absolutely adore the entire book. It is a thick one. It is a thick boy. But it was a really good story, and I definitely recommend it to any fantasy lover, seriously. I cannot recommend this book enough. It is really good. So this video is going to be about Starless. So this book is called Starless by Jacqueline Carey, and I definitely loved the cover, obviously, because it's shooting stars, kind of. And I think if you can kind of look at the landscape, it kind of looks like a desert, which definitely comes into play. And I really liked the title, Starless. It's there's no stars in the sky. That is true. That is true in this book. And the back of the book kind of looks the same, and then obviously has the little blurb. So I'm going to go ahead and read the blurb. It starts off with this quote up here that says, "I was 9 years old the first time I tried to kill a man," and an ellipses. So the blurb is, Kai spent his youth learning the killing arts to protect his soul's twin, the sun-blessed princess, Zariah. But one secret was withheld, that he is Bazim, an honorary boy, born a daughter but raised as a son. At court, Kai learns to navigate deadly intrigue and his own conflicted identity. But in the far reaches of the western seas, the dark god Miasmus is rising, intent on nothing less than wholesale destruction. And according to prophecy, Zariah, fierce and quick-witted, but suffering from the physical damage of a childhood illness, must stand against him. If Kai is to keep the princess he reveres alive, their only hope lies in a journey that will take them farther beneath the starless skies than either of them can imagine. Quite a story. I mean, this is very different from all of the kinds of stories that you could possibly read. I mean, first of all, the main character is essentially in a fantasy universe, almost transgender. But it's interesting because not really. Like, the thought of like, okay, born a girl, raised a boy, like, you know, like the whole gender stuff does kind of give that, like, you know, vibe. But at the same time, Kai didn't choose to be raised as a boy. And so that's why even on the back of the book it says, and his own conflicted identity, you know, because eventually, obviously, he does learn that he was born a female but raised a boy. And so it's a really interesting story because I've never seen a main character like that before, and it immediately piqued my interest because what a cool idea. Not only that, but the other like main character, because there's a lot of characters in this book, like there's a whole list. I will go into it, but there's the other main character is disabled. It says here she suffers from the physical damage of a childhood illness. I'm not going to go into what that is because that's a spoiler-ish. But she is disabled. She has a physical disability, and you don't really see that often in books. And I was like, man, the plot already sounds really cool because it's fantasy and it's, you know, deadly intrigue over the Western seas and that kind of stuff. And that's right up my alley, like especially in fantasy. And then you have these really two cool like main characters that have very different backgrounds from at least what I've been reading my whole life. So for me, that was what really hooked me on the back and what really made me get the book and wanted to read it. Obviously, like I said, a thick boy. There is like different sections of the book. It starts out in the desert. Like I said, you can see that the landscape here is like a desert. And so the book starts out in the desert and then goes on to like the different landscapes that you'll see throughout the book, like the kingdom and then the seas and other kinds of terrain, basically. And like I said, there are a lot of characters. So I kind of want to... The one thing I love about fantasy that's so funny is that they always have names that I'm never 100% sure I'm pronouncing correctly. Zariah, I think I'm pronouncing correctly. I think. Kai, also, I'm pretty sure that I'm pronouncing correctly. But there's a lot of names in here. Like, as you can see, because this is just a cast of characters. These are all the characters in the book. And like I said, they, you know, separate them into the different scenes and terrain that we're going to see. And so these are the characters that you meet in the desert. These are the characters you meet in the court. And then these are the characters you meet on the seas. And I think there's even on the back, yeah, there's even a list of the deities, because this book does, in the fantasy world of this book, they don't have one god. It's not monotheism, it's polytheism. There's many gods. And they're not even like named gods. Like it doesn't say like god of, like in Greek mythology. Like for example, the deity that the desert people like talk about the most and are most connected to is called Parkun, the Scouring Wind, and Anamut, the Purging Fire. Am I sure I'm pronouncing those correctly? No. I'm going based on how they're spelled and how I would pronounce them as an English speaker. So who knows? These are all fictional people, but it kind of seems like I want to say like the possible background is kind of more Mediterranean or maybe Middle East, or you know what I mean? Like, because some things, there's stories are always based in some kind of truth, some kind of actual real place or people. And that's kind of what I think is happening here. And that's what I think is happening. I'm not 100% sure. But there's a lot of characters in this book, and it's helpful to have a list. And that's that on the characters. I'm not going to go into all of the characters because, boy, that would be such a long video. And if this video does get enough views, I probably will go into it because this has been one of my favorite fantasy books that I've ever read. So I'd be down to make a longer video about this. But since this is just my general thoughts on the book, we're not going to go into that today. But I'm very excited to talk about this book because I really love it so much. And again, no spoilers so far. I will let you know we're going to start spoilers soon. I really, really, really love this book. I do want to go ahead and read the first page and then talk a little bit about why I love this book so much. So before I go into why I love the book so much, just read the first page as I tend to do. Sometimes I forget because I don't have like a list of things that I'm like gonna do in the videos. It's just me like being excited talking about books. So this is the first page, chapter 1. It literally just says 1 on the top. I was 9 years old the first time I tried to kill a man, and although in the end I was glad my attempt failed, I had been looking forward to the opportunity for quite some months. That is only natural, I think, when one is raised as I was. Although as I grow older, I am less and less sure what that means. All things proceed from nature. If one thing alters the course of another's growth, is that not yet within the accordance of nature? A vine, trained to climb a trellis, remains a vine. And I am Kai, and remain myself, whatever that means. It is a good name, strong and bold, a name like the sound of a desert hawk's cry. A fitting name for a child of the desert, a fitting name for a child whose destiny was determined by a single feather. But that is not the whole truth, and Brother San, who is our seer, and the wisest among us, says truth must be laid bare, as clean as a corpse flinched to the bone by Parkun the scouring wind. So, this was the truth as I knew it. 9 years ago, in the realm of Zarkum, such an event transpired as had not taken place for 150 years. At the precise moment that Nim, the bright moon, obscured Shahal, the dark moon, a child was born to the house of the ageless, whose members are also known as the sun-blessed. The priestesses of Anamut, the purging fire, are great keepers of records, and the lore of the realm holds that when a child of the royal house is born during a lunar eclipse, so too is his or her shadow. I was not the only such child born at that precise moment. That's the end of the first page, and I'm not going to go into the next because, boy, I'm just going to want to keep reading it out loud and basically read the whole book in this video, which would take so long. But I don't know about anyone else watching this video, but if you're into fantasy, I don't know about you, but that sounds really cool. I love the idea of destiny, and, you know, he even mentioned, like, the child was born to the house of the ageless, and then so was her or his shadow. And what that means, and this is not a spoiler because it's kind of like described on the back of the book, but basically the shadow is basically the protector of the born person in the house of the ageless, because they're the royalty. And then the person that's born as their shadow is basically their protector, like a warrior. They're trained as a warrior, and then they spend their life protecting that one specific person. They were born at the exact same time, and they will spend their entire life together. What's really cool about this is that this doesn't really seem like a spoiler, and I will kind of say this, is that there's many different relationships that can form between these two, between the sun-blessed royalty and their shadow. They can just be friends. Sometimes they are more than friends. And I think it's really interesting because it's not just that simple, like, oh, it's just your protector. So it's an interesting relationship. Let's put it that way. It's a very, very unique relationship. So that's this book. And I hope I haven't oversold the book, but I also hope that I have made it clear how much I love this book and how I think it's so worth a read. It's just so good. It's full of adventure and battles and relationships and, you know, identity, and it's just so packed of so many things that it's honestly a really, really amazingly written book. And there's so much going on that honestly you may have to read it a couple of times just to enjoy all of the different aspects of the book. So I think it's really worth a read, especially if you're into fantasy. I don't think I could possibly say anything even better than I already have without any spoilers. So I'm going to go into spoilers now. So if you don't want any spoilers, thank you so much for watching. Now is the time to close out the video, just in case you don't want any spoilers. But yes, anyway, moving on to some spoilers. I'm not going to give away too many things. There's just like a couple of things that I like to talk about, especially with Kai, the main character. I really love the journey that Kai goes on, because the story starts out, Kai is the narrator of the entire book, and the story starts out when Kai is, I think, like a preteen, it's fun because you're like, which gender do they want to go by? Like, it's complicated because it's not that simple. It's not what you would expect. And by the end of the book, Kai does seem to feel more in the middle, you know, kind of more, not necessarily a boy, not necessarily a girl, like kind of maybe more towards a boy. And I think for that sake, I'm going to go by them. So Kai was, when they were 9 years old, you know, that was the first time that they tried to kill a man. But really, as you can tell by the first page, the book really starts out when Kai was a baby, because there was a little bit of a mention of it in the first page, but the whole thing was determined by a feather. So what happens is, when a child is born to the sun-blessed, to the house of the ageless, the royalty, all over the desert, every child that was born at the exact same time as that royal baby is brought to the desert, and there's like I don't know how to describe it, like an arena, I guess, that all of the infants are placed there. And I think it's the seer that holds the hawk's feather, because even in the first page, Kai mentions a hawk. Hawks are like big symbolic creatures in the desert in this book, and the hawk's feather will be dropped by that person, by the seer, from the top of the arena, and whichever baby it lands on, basically, is the shadow of the sun-blessed. And literally, Kai was that baby, literally even grabbed out and reached for the feather. And so that's how it was determined, because of course there's going to be more than one baby born at the exact same time as the princess. So that's how it was determined that Kai would be the princess's shadow. And what that entails is Kai is then taken away from their family as a baby and raised by what's essentially, like if we wanted to equate it to something in the actual world, like a monastery. So it's just full of men that are dedicated to the deity, because not a god, because they didn't really call them gods, to the deity of the desert, Parkun, the scouring wind. And their entire life is dedicated to basically serving that deity. And that they live kind of in that arena. That arena that the babies are placed in is where the monks, they're not really monks, but that's like what we have in the real world that's similar enough. That's where they live. And so that's where Kai was. Kai never knew they're a family. Like, Kai was born, the ceremony took place, Kai was the one that was the shadow, and then was basically entirely raised by the Brotherhood. Because there actually is a name for them. It's the Brotherhood. Just had it. Hang on. I just had it. Because they're a specific brotherhood. Like, they even have a name. Like, that's why I'm like, it's kind of similar enough to monks. I'm not going to find it, am I? As soon as I go looking for something, it's like, it is a waste of time. But anyway, so being raised by the Brotherhood is interesting because, how do I put this? It's not common for a female baby to be chosen for this particular shadow situation. It happens and has happened, but it's not common, especially because I think in the royal family, it's like mostly princes have been born, and in this world, it's just whoever was born, the opposite is usually their shadow, the opposite gender, sex. But not this time. This time, a princess was born and a female baby was chosen to be the princess's protector, her shadow. So the Brotherhood didn't know what to do because this isn't the norm. And especially because there's no women at the Brotherhood. There's no women at that, where they live. And, I swear to God, I'm going to find this. I'm just going to keep talking while I look. There's no women there. So they didn't want to raise Kai as a girl. They chose to raise Kai, as a boy. And for the first 13 years of Kai's life, Kai thinks they're a boy. And they have no reason to think otherwise. Have never seen a woman before in their life and have no reason to think, like, why would I be a girl? Like, that doesn't make sense. And the book starts out with Kai finding that out. And the whole book doesn't, like, focus on that aspect of the book itself. But it's part of it. The entire book is Kai's journey into figuring out who they want to be. And, you know, even like I said, because it doesn't really feel like a spoiler, Kai eventually goes, well, I don't really feel like a girl, and I don't really feel like a boy either. So, you know, I feel like I'm just gonna go with kind of in the middle, like, you know, no super one way or the other. And I thought it was really fun to read like that because all of the characters were just like, okay, yep, that works. That's who you are. And I just loved it because even though this book was so rigid and traditional, like women do this, men do this, and the son blessed has to have an opposite of the gender, like a you know, like this is, and you know, like that kind of thing. It's always a man that's the protector, and it's, you know, it's not like that all the time. I like that when this happens, when something goes a little bit different, they're not exactly closed-minded, I guess I should say. They just accept it and move on. Kai is who Kai says they are. And that's it. That's all it is. And I just really, really love that because, like I said, it's so strange to read a book that seems so closed-minded about gender roles. And then basically the main character is, you know, completely outside of that gender norm that all of the characters are used to. So I think it's really cool, honestly. I can't find the name of the Brotherhood. I'm gonna give up because it honestly doesn't matter for me to keep looking that hard for it. But I think that was one of the reasons I really love this book, because Kai goes through this entire journey of discovering who they are, and it not even just in their gender identity, like who they are as a person. Because especially when Kai meets Zariah, which, as the book kind of mentions, they are soul twins. They were born at the exact same time from different, you know, biological families, but they were born at the same time. And there's something in their souls that recognizes each other, whether that's going to be platonic or romantic or whatever it is going to be. They have a special bond. And watching Kai grow into a different person is really cool to watch in this book, because Zariah is just like, whatever you want to do, Kai. Like, I know you're here to protect me, but there's just, my heart, like, I just can't imagine you being miserable. I need you to be you, whoever you are. And it's just so, it's so amazing and loving. And I love that story so much. And they're young when they first meet. I think they're, like I said, I think Kai is like a preteen. So I think they're like 13 when the two of them meet. Maybe a little older, possibly. And then the whole adventure of the book. So I'm only going to describe it a little bit because we're getting a little bit long into this video here. But basically, the stars in the sky in this book are the deities that are listed there. So all of the stars are a specific deity. That's their physical manifestation. But an event happened because all the deities are brothers and sisters. And an event happened, and one of the brothers or sisters, one of the deities, fell from the sky, was basically outcast by their siblings, and started bringing darkness to the world, and then all of the deities went away. So there's no more stars in the sky. And for generations, it's been like that. For generations, people in this world have never seen stars in the sky. And it's all part of a whole story where the specific deity that fell from the skies, Miasmus, which is mentioned on the back of the book, is basically trying to create his own version of the world that he wants to see, and even punish his siblings for casting him out, and basically killing all humans on the planet, including even possibly like the animals and things. And the deities can only do so much, I guess. I don't really remember why, but essentially it turns out that there's other kinds of legends about certain heroes that will bring everything back and put the deities back where they belong in the skies and save the world from Miasmus. And that's the entire journey that Kai and Zariah go on. And it becomes incredibly dangerous. There's definitely deaths. This is a slight spoiler. I'm not going to tell you who dies in this book. It's not Kai or Zariah. They're the main characters. But there's a lot of characters in this book, and there are deaths. So if you can't handle that and you need to know who the deaths are, you can message me privately and I will tell you, because I'm sometimes that kind of person where I'm reading a book and I get way too attached to the characters, and as soon as I think they're gonna die or I see that they're writing them to die, I'll sometimes stop reading the book. I can't help it. I get so attached to these characters and I just like, I can't help myself. I'm just like, I can't read this right now. I have a pile of books. I'm not even exaggerating. A pile of books and movies and TV shows where when something was starting to happen where I could tell a character was gonna die, I just stopped watching or reading. So if you're like me, let me know, because if you want to read this book but you just need to be prepared as to who dies, I can let you know. You can message me on YouTube and I will let you know. So it's a really good book. I can't recommend it enough. I really, really think it's really good. If you're a fantasy lover, I think you're gonna love it. It's got all the, adventure and the battles, and it's a whole war basically, and it's got so much description. The reason this book is so long is because it's written to basically world build. You're building the whole world. So a lot of the book is description. It's description of the things that you're seeing, the things that you're smelling, but through Kai's eyes, because that's who the narrator is. And it's just such a good book. And I could talk about it for like another half hour, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to stop there talking about this book. But yeah, if you've watched this far, thank you so much for watching. I love making videos about books. It's one of the things I'm super, super passionate about. I do intend on making all different kinds of content eventually. Things are just really chaotic in my life right now. I'm glad that I have this, you know, at least settled and going, and a schedule to do this, because otherwise I just can't get around to it. But stick around and maybe you'll see some new kinds of content. But otherwise, definitely subscribe to my channel and you'll get updated when I upload new videos, which I do every Friday morning. And you'll get to see all new videos that I make about the books that I read, just kind of the thoughts that I have about the books. And like this video if you enjoyed it. I really want to know if you enjoyed what I make. And if you really like this video, or maybe you really didn't like it, comment below. Whatever you have to say, as long as it's respectful, I want to know, because this is all about interacting with people, even though it's online. And I want to know what people have to say. So however you interact with this video, just know that I appreciate you more than words can say. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.